You know, I've had the ZX Spectrum Next Issue 2 for over a year now, and one of the things I never installed was the Accelerator board, which is a Raspberry Pi Zero, but you've got to put some headers on it. You got to make sure and have the right header socket. I just never got around to it, so it was time to do that because I have backed the Issue 3 board. One of the really things I'm excited about is with the latest Kickstarter, you can just get a board. So I can replace just the board in my Issue 2, which is perfect because I don't need another one of these laying around, and it reduces the cost. The other cool thing, I get all of the perks. So I'm really excited about that. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I prepared my Accelerator board so that I will have it for the Issue 3 when it arrives. And along the way, we'll learn a little bit more about what the Accelerator board does for the Spectrum when it's installed. All right, let's get started, and let's get started with the actual preparing of the board, and then along the way, I'll interject some of those things that Accelerator board will do for you. This thing is a blast, by the way. First thing we need to do is grab a version of the NextPi 2 software, which is actually DietPi, which I learned as I was messing around with this. And as you can see, after you download it and extract it, you'll see all the files that are typically included with DietPi, but have been optimized for your Spectrum Next. So here we have the image file that we need, and that's the one that we're going to need to burn to an SD card. Now it does come with some instructions, so be sure to check that out for some specifics if I've missed some things. And I'm going to use Balana Etcher. Quite simply, just pick the image file itself. It'll be in this folder right here. And then we're going to select the media or the target to burn that to. Be very careful, get the right one. Mine is the 16 gigabit version. It's that little SD card that actually came with my Raspberry Pi. Very cool. And we'll go ahead and burn that. Now, while that's burning, let's go ahead and start the soldering process. So the first thing I'm going to do is wet my sponge. You always got to have a wet sponge when you do your soldering. And we'll go ahead and turn on the soldering iron. And we'll crank her up to temperature. Now you'll need a Raspberry Pi 1. I happen to have this one right here, and I've had it for a couple of years, and this is the perfect project for it. Now this particular one also came with a header. Now we'll talk about that in a minute, but it also came with this wonderful 16 gigabyte micro SD, which by the way, is the one I'm using and burning to now. I just have a little inconsistency in my video here. Let's go ahead and try this header though. I want to show you how these headers fit, but again, do not use a header like this if it comes with your Raspberry Pi Zero. What you need instead is this type of header. This is a 20x2 female header, and it goes on the board, but you may want to put it in this orientation. Nope, that's not the way you need to do it. You need to flip it over and put it in this orientation so that when we solder, it'll plug in nicely with our ZX Spectrum Next right onto the motherboard. You can see we've got our solder pin, so we will be soldering on the top, which is kind of close to those delicate components, so be very careful. Now, to help me, I have this great solder table. By the way, I'll put a link to this in the video description down below in case you don't have a good solder table like this one. And this thing is awesome with these magnetic clips. I really enjoy it. I can simply plug the Raspberry Pi Zero, or clip it, not plug it, we're clipping it onto both of these clips like this and just move it into place. All right, that's pretty good right there, getting things. Now, let's go ahead and grab that header. Now, you're probably wondering, how's he going to get that header to stay there? Well, I could use some blue tack, or again, this comes with these great alligator clips. I can use another one here, put it into place, and just have that particular arm hold that component right into place right there. That is not bad. Worked out actually better than I thought it was going to. All right, let's prepare for soldering. I'm going to crank up. Actually, I'm cranking down that temperature a little bit. I'm taking it down to about 650, which should be fine. If I need to, I can always make those adjustments. It's always good to have a soldering iron where you can actually change the temperature. By the way, I'll try and link to that in the video description as well. And then it's just the laborious process of soldering all of these 40 little pins. So that'll take a little bit of time. Let's go ahead and do that. You see I have a couple blobs on those first ones. I did go back and fix those blobs. I just took the soldering iron, held it to them, and they seated pretty nicely. Now, once I get the one row, I am going to flip it over. Just made it a lot easier to solder that other row when I didn't have to reach over another row. But again, be very careful because you are moving that iron across the top of the Raspberry Pi Zero, and you could damage some components. Getting this thing all cleaned up, not bad, not the best, but not bad, and hopefully it's going to work. That's the big part. All right, it's time for Accelerator Advantage number 1. You can load .tzx files with your Raspberry Pi installed. Now, it's important to note that you cannot do this on a stock Next. You must have the Accelerator card to load these tzx files. Once you do that, it starts to load those files, and the beauty of this is you get to hear those wonderful analog sounds coming across those speakers if you have your speakers hooked up. I, of course, am using the Checkmate monitor, which really makes this thing stand out. It's got great sound and great video. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just leave this running. I really want you to hear all of these sounds because what it's doing is it is simulating the process of installing software using a tape drive. And my understanding is this is what it would have sounded like on an original ZX Spectrum. Now, please note, I never had one of these. The ZX Spectrum Next is my actual first ZX machine. All right, let's listen to those sounds in real time, and then I'll be back with you in just a little bit. All right, we have Zaxxon loaded, and this is one of my favorite games of all time. I've been very curious to see how it runs on this machine and what it looks like. See if we get that good isometric gaming goodness that we got with our other versions. I was especially good on the arcade version, and some of the ports of the computers were not that great. This seems okay. Not bad. There's some issues here. The wall is just black and white. Oh, there's some color. Okay, we do have some color. And, you know, one of the things that I'm noticing is it's just really, really slow. Wouldn't it be great if there was some way to speed that up and make the gameplay just a little more responsive? Well, you know what? On the ZX Spectrum Next, we can do that. We can change that from 3.5 megahertz to 7 megahertz. We can actually go up to 28. Pretty sure that'd be too fast. Now, let's try it on 7 megahertz. Ah, yes, much more natural, much easier to play at 7 megahertz than it was on 3.5 megahertz. This is not bad when you crank up the speed just a little bit. Let's go ahead and play a little bit of this, and then we'll go back to preparing our ZX Spectrum with our accelerator board. All right, time to open up the ZX Spectrum Next. By the way, if you need a good cover, So Ready has you covered. Check out the link in the video description below for where you can get this ZX Spectrum Next cover. I love these things. They're on all my computers. All right, here's my issue 2. Now, what we need to do is we need to pull this little guy apart. We're going to need to pull off the plate from the back, and those are held in, or it's held in by several screws. I think it's about 6 screws, and there are a couple under the feet. So you're going to need to remember to open up the feet and grab those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, looks like 6 screws holding that together. pretty easy to disassemble. Let's go ahead and get started with that disassembly. All right, just standard old Phillips screwdriver. Just take those screws right out. Once you do that, you can lift the back right off. Be very careful, and then that will expose the insides. Now, the nice thing is there's nothing on that bottom plate. It's all within this top plate right here. And what we need to do is we're going to need to unscrew this board from the top plate so that we can get to the underside of the board to install our accelerator. All right, so we'll go ahead and remove the screws. Again, same Phillips head screwdriver works for this. And be very, very careful. Now, many of the instructions will tell you that you need to disconnect the keyboard cable. I'm choosing not to do so because it looked like I had plenty of room, and anytime I disconnect a keyboard cable, it seems to never work again. So I'm going to omit that step, and I'm just going to remove the screws on the sidecar here as well, which is the sidecar for the SD card holder, and I'm just going to tilt all of this right towards the back. And again, I'm not going to touch those ribbon cables because I'm, again, afraid I would just break something if I did. That would just be my luck. So I'm going to prop the board up, and we're going to install the accelerator board right here. But before we do, let's look at another reason you want an accelerator board, and that is for dot commands. That's right, dot commands. Think of dot commands as like Linux commands or commands that you can run from your Diet Pi or your accelerator board, your accelerator Pi, your Pi, whatever that accelerator thing is called. And check out all these different dot commands that you have access to once you install your accelerator board. Now you're probably wondering, why do I call them dot commands? Well, the reason for that is when you go to the command line, you start each command with a dot. If you don't have the accelerator card in, none of these dot commands will work. This is a fun one. And for those Linux ninja folks out there, the calce command is just a whole lot of fun. And can you believe it's also available on the ZX Spectrum Next when you install an accelerator board? Check it out. There you go. Calce, hello retroCombians. That's just one command. Let's take a look at a couple of other commands. Like the .term command, which does probably what you expect. It will give you access to a terminal where you can connect to your Raspberry Pi accelerator board and issue commands. It's pretty handy. I'm learning a little bit about what its capabilities are, and if you're interested in a deeper dive, leave a comment down below, and maybe we'll take a deeper dive into some of these other dot commands, especially this terminal or terminex command. And as you would expect, like most Linux commands, there is a help file to help you work with this software. I'm going to hit the reset button to go back to the beginning, and let's explore another dot command. Let's look at the NextPi UI command. And this is a great command to check to make sure your accelerator is working with this screen. Once we hit our spacebar, then we have access to a GUI that lets us control the storage on our accelerator board, remembering that there is a 16 gigabyte card on that SD card. This will help us use that card for additional remote storage. Now let's do something fun with those dot commands. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go into our browser here, and I'm going to browse to a specific subdirectory. Let me go ahead and move up here, and I want to come down to, let's see, apps. I want to go down to audio. Let's go down to, yeah, here. That's perfect. And then look at these mods. So there are 4 mod files in here, and I want to play one of those. Now that I am within that directory, I can go back to my command line, and I can type in this command, .mxmod, followed by the name of the mod file I want to play, and .mod. Press enter. Check this out. And our ZX Spectrum Next is playing .mod or mod files. How cool is that? You can load up a whole bunch of mod files and play them individually, but hold on, we're going to take a look at another way you can play mod files in just a little bit later on in this video. And by the way, one of the things I've been doing is I've been using the command line, but you can also use the dot commands within Next Basic. You can see I selected the Next Basic option, and now I'm using the NX mod file again, and let's play another one. And there you go. We've started a mod file in NX Basic or Next Basic. So as you can see, we can use dot commands in either the command line or in Next Basic. That gives you a lot of flexibility, folks. All right, let's do one more fun one, and that is .cpm, which will start our CPM interpreter. There is a menu option for this, but it's just so much more fun to do it with a dot command, isn't it? All right, let's get that accelerator board plugged in. So we're going to have to make sure and orient it properly. You want to make sure and orient it so that the header is in this orientation. You're going to push it firmly into place, and you've got to make sure you put it in this orientation or your ports won't come out the back, which we'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, we also need to insert our SD card. Again, that goes into the side just like it does on any standard Raspberry Pi Zero. Just plug that right in. Now, there is a backing plate you need to remove, and there was a screw in here, and I forgot to record that, but be sure to take that screw out, and then what you're going to do is you're going to push down firmly right here and then pull it up and out, and that should remove. It is tricky, folks, and you do feel like you're going to break it. It even sounds like you're going to break it, but all is fine. And there's that backing plate. You will not need that again once you install the accelerator. Now we're going to carefully put this back into place. Again, everything should just lay right back into place, and then we're going to get things ready to test to see if everything works. Now, I'm not going to screw all this back in until I run a test to make sure that everything's working, it powers on, and then we'll also see if we can figure out how we can test to see if the accelerator board is active. Now, I understand it can take up to 20 seconds to boot. I don't think it takes quite that long, but we'll see. All right, I've got power plugged in, and I've got this cute little monitor, little HDMI monitor. You've seen it in many of my other videos on my other channel, which is at retroCombs-tech. By the way, if you're interested in modern tech, check out that channel. This is at retroCombs, but check out at retroCombs-tech for some cool modern hardware. And as you can see, I use a lot of modern hardware with my retro components. All right, let's see now if we can fire this thing up and run a test. Make sure everything's working. Just power on. That's all I ask. Please, just power. Oh, thank goodness. Everything's working. I didn't bork it by putting in the accelerator card the wrong direction. Great. So now I'm going to go ahead and get all the screws back in on this motherboard and that side card. And then let's go ahead and put the back on. Let's make sure and line that up properly. And again, we'll just use those same screws. Now, I should let you know, with those inside screws, when you put the accelerator card, and this one drove me nuts for a while, you will have a spare screw. Don't let it drive you nuts. That's where that backing plate, that's the screw that was holding in that backing plate. So you will have one extra screw. All right, we'll go ahead and screw the bottom plate back to the top plate. Everything's still working. We'll flip her over. Everything looks great. And there you go. You can see now we have a new port available in the back, which is a digital video debugger and 2 micro USB ports, as you can see here. Now, I've not used these, but I'll have to give them a shot and see what they do. Now, while there are other reasons to put an accelerator card, this is the last one we're going to cover in this, and it's play.mod files. Now, we've already alluded to this, but what you didn't know and what I didn't tell you earlier is playing mod files does require an accelerator card, and there are other types of files that you can play with an accelerator card, including SID files and video files. You can also display image files. Now, I'm not going to cover those in this video. Again, if that's something maybe we need to dig into and explore, leave a comment in the video comments down below. I'll be happy to take a look at that. But as you can see, the ZX Spectrum Next does have its own mod player built in, but there's also mod software installed, and that's where things get a little more interesting. Instead of playing these mod files individually, you can queue up a whole playlist full of them and give it a shot. Let's go ahead and take a look at that option using some of the ZX Next software to play mod files. And we're going to use the modern NX mod player that comes with your Spectrum Next. We're going to come down here and we're going to select a mod folder, and here's a mod file, and let's load it. Now with this software, you get some enhanced visuals and some additional information. So let's go ahead and take a little time and listen to these mod files. And here's an option screen that reminds us that mod files came from our Amiga computers, but now we can play them on the ZX Spectrum Next. All right, it's time to test to see if my accelerator board works after my soldering and install. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the ZXDB loader, which is a basic program designed to go out onto the interwebs and grab us a ZX Next title. So I'm going to look for something called Pac. I was thinking about Pac-Man, but then I saw this Pacific War and I thought, oh, that sounds pretty good. Let's try that. And that is a .tzx file. So we'll download that first. That's pretty quick. And now we need to see if it runs. And we have to choose the correct machine here. So we'll choose the 48K. All right, it's loading. Look at that. Think we're going to be in good shape, folks. Let's see if it plays. And there it is. I have successfully installed an accelerator card into my ZX Spectrum Next Issue 2. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little journey in preparing my Raspberry Pi Zero as my accelerator board for the Issue 2. Look forward to installing that in the Issue 3, which hopefully will arrive before the end of the year, maybe around Christmas time. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, check out this video right here, where I go through my initial reactions of my Issue 2 ZX Spectrum Next. It's a great video, packed with fun and tips along the way. That's it for me, retroCombs out. See you guys next time and in the next video.